So on with the academy. Pro gamers are athletes, but being an athlete is often portrayed as a glamorous life, but often to the detriment of the athlete's physical and mental well-being. This year, we saw several athletes openly talking about mental health issues, especially under extreme pressure and competitive games, including Olympians such as Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles. This morning, I said we talked about player management and what happens when things go well, mostly when things go well. But this mental health and well-being module looks to dig deep and really bring one of the most important yet rarely discussed facets to life and bring it to the surface. And it's delivered by one of the best known names and faces in the industry to talk about this. A gaming esports expert and entrepreneur, Koen Schobbers. Now, Kern won't mind me saying he started in 2007 as a professional esports player. He's a board member of the wonderful Global Esports Federation I mentioned earlier. He founded Kearns and Parents of Play, which we're going to be talking about today. Now, as I said, we want to hear from you. So please, audience out there in the internet land, get your questions in and I can ask them to Kern. But Kern, we've touched on who you are, but please tell us, who are you, where are you, who do you work with, and more important, and what do your family and friends think you do for a living?
Yeah, so thank you, Jasper, and of course the whole team at Brendan to invite me for today's session. Now,
Kern, I'm going to ask you. We've got your issues with your tech again. Do you mind if we ask you to refresh? As I did say to our friends out there in the internet world, because this is the last one, we're going to have these issues. It's going to take him 2 seconds to come back. So that gives me a chance to once again talk about Kern coming back. There he is. Can we hear you?
There we go. Yeah. Is it
brilliant?
Better?
You're back.
Brilliant. There we are. So what I was saying, Jasper, thanks for the invitation as well as the whole team of Branded and the Gaming Matters Academy, which I think is handling very interesting topics, very important topics in the academy, as well as this one. So my background, so where I'm from, the Netherlands, I live in Gouda. Now, many people might know the word Gouda because of the cheese Gouda, which comes from where I live at the moment. And what I do is that I started in the gaming industry from a very, very young age as an amateur gamer, playing Pokemon Yellow on the Game Boy Color. But in 2007, I became a professional player in Trackmania. Did that for 11 years, built a whole career around it, and eventually stayed in the industry as a player, vice chair of the Athletes Place and Community Commission of the Global Esports Federation, but not an active professional player anymore. And nowadays, like you mentioned, Jasper, I have 2 companies that I every day work in with a lot of passion.
And tell us a little bit more about the 2 companies.
Yeah, so Koens is focused on speaking and working with businesses. So one of the things I like doing the most is speaking. So conferences, business events, global, local, whatever it is, I'll go there as a speaker. I'll inform people, I teach people, I educate people, I hopefully activate people afterwards as well. And because of being a speaker, I very often get in touch with companies. So I tend to work with businesses as well and help them out and provide them information. But also, secondly, a more social business, I would say, is Parents of Play, where we aim to help parents to repair, retain, or reinforce the relationship with their gaming children and make sure those gaming children have a healthy, balanced lifestyle with what I call the game well played, which consists of 5 S's, which is sleep, study, sports, social life, and screens. And these S's are relevant for amateurs as well as professionals, as I made this model during my professional career with my mother. That is a model that is very important in the teachings I do.
So who are your clients?
Well, clients are like in the Netherlands and global, quite a variety. So first of all, from Parents of Play perspective, at least clients-wise, we have the parents directly that we work with. So some parents are looking for our courses or information or teachings. So we provide that. But we also work with clinics, with municipalities, with governments. We work with commercial parties, which we've done in 2019 before COVID hit, with Vodafone Ziggo, which is a big player here in the Netherlands, a telecom company. that has a lot of attention towards this topic: balanced lifestyle, balanced screen time. So we work with them as well. So that is, and of course, healthcare organizations in general. So quite a wide variety of businesses and organizations we work with. Yeah.
Fantastic. We've actually got our first question in. Now that we've established who you are, now, if I pronounce this wrong, I do apologize, but it's either Hexino or Hexinho. Kern, given the nature of esport competitions, how prevalent versus regulated is PEDs around esports tournaments? Now, I might have to ask you, what is a PED?
Well, I very quickly, while I read the question, I hit up Google because it's a shortcut. But it actually in the Netherlands we have the same shortcut of the word, let's say. So PEDs in the Netherlands we call them prestatiebevorderende drugs. Well, in English it's performance boosting drugs, let's say in an easy way. The two that are very known in the industry is Ritalin and Adderall. So Ritalin is usually used, as well as Adderall, by the way, usually used for ADHD. So players that do have the diagnosis of ADHD are allowed to use Ritalin while they're playing. The reason why is that instead of going on overload in their brain, they go back to normal, if I can say it like that, like at least what's considered, because it's a diagnosis. So the drug helps them to refocus on what they're doing instead of the brain splitting the attention between a lot of different topics and being distracted very quickly. However, when you use drugs like these as a human being that is not diagnosed with ADHD, it actually is considered a drug that is increasing your performance in game by having a even better focus for an extended period of time, as well as avoiding you to feel the nerves and have the effects of nerves during a game. Like imagine you're playing an accurate game like I did with Trackmania. You're holding your controller and you're nervous. Your thumb is moving because of the nerves. Now, if I'll be like, I want to win this tournament, there's high pressure. We're going to talk about that. High prize pools. I want to win. Let's take a little bit of Ritalin so I make sure I don't have the symptoms of my nerves, so I can be more accurate with my gameplay. I can be more focused for a longer period of time, and therefore I'm boosting my performance in the game and hopefully get a better result, which of course is not what we want in the industry. So I think how prevalent and how regulated is it prevalent? Luckily not, at least in comparison to traditional sports. It's the beginning stages. We sometimes do see it if you Google it. I think the most recent case was in Dota 2, but luckily for us, it doesn't happen too often yet. The industry is growing. And how regulated is it? Well, several tournament organizers are working with the WADA, so the World Anti-Doping Agency, to regulate PADs at events. So at least steps are being taken.
Good. So the advice there is don't go near them. In all walks of life, especially if it hasn't been diagnosed, if you haven't been diagnosed or prescribed. Okay, so back on this, and thank you, Hexino, for the question. Any other questions? Please come in. Please get them in. We mentioned the Global Esports Federation partners with us in the academy and about to launch the CECs at the Commonwealth Games next week in Birmingham in the UK. What is you touched on it, what is your role within the Global Esports Federation? What initiatives have they taken on board to address player mental health and well-being?
Yeah, so I'm a board member and vice chair of the Athletes, Players and Community Commission of the Global Esports Federation since the initiation, the very beginning at the end of 2019, December, early 2020, January. Very, 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 very excited to be part of this journey. We have grown tremendously in the past, 2.5 years now, from absolutely zero partners, or actually one because Tencent was our founding partner, to now having over 115, I believe exactly 118 member federations and over 25 partnerships with global companies. So very excited project, like business, I would say the Global Esports Federation is, and happy to be a part of it. So I help with decision making, board decisions, and also speaking like today. And we have a lot of attention in the commission for player wellness, player healthcare, player contracts, everything that has to do with players, because of the Players, Athletes, and Community Commission. And what is interesting and what the Global Esports Federation does is, besides us having a Players, Athletes, and Community Commission, which I'm vice chairing, we actually have a dedicated Health and Wellness Commission that is being chaired by board member and chair of the commission, the Health and Wellness Commission, Dr. Melida Moore. And the Health and Wellness Commission taps into the expertise of international healthcare and wellness professionals through the network that we have as well. And for example, we have a partnership with Thomson X that was established, I believe, in 2020, where the Performance Plus Wellness Initiative was launched to encourage responsible esports and promoting optimized performance, wellness, and a balanced lifestyle. And one of the heroes, I can say, that supported this mission was Cristiano Ronaldo, as he announced this teamwork, this cooperation on his social media as well. So we have a dedicated commission for health and wellness, which I think is a great step.
Fantastic. So let's take taking great steps. Let's take a step back. The pressures of gaming can result in mental and emotional challenges. What are you seeing what can happen? What are the recurring health issues, mental health issues that gamers face? And I guess it's a very big question, but what advice do you give them?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I like to subdivide this into three situations. We have the amateurs, casual gamers. We have the potential want to be pro gamers, the competitive ones, and we have the professionals. And I do believe that for each stage, there is different potential health and wellness problems that can arise. So for the amateur gamers, which has to do a lot with my work as well, it has, for example, to do with social exclusion. You know, they start playing games, but they forget about their real life. Also, again, luckily, it doesn't happen that often. But if it does happen, it can be very painful for the family as well and the friends. So social exclusion is quite a big one from a mental health issue, or potentially depression in real life that eventually shows itself by playing games a lot of times. So gaming doesn't have to be the cause. It can be a follow-up because of feelings in real life. But games can also cause depression under that. Now, when we look at the competitive gamers that want to try and reach the professional level, a lot of them have to do with the mental stress and the burnout of putting in hours and hours and hours and hours to even get close to reaching a professional level, because they're not there yet. Of course, if you are there yet, there might be less pressure of keep putting in the hours because you already have the contract, you have the team, you have the management. Of course, you still got to perform on top level, but you're there. But all those thousands of players that want to get to that level very often put in even more hours to try and reach that level. So a lot of it comes down to burnout in this typical step. So there's the competitive gamer step that want to reach pro. And once you're pro, I think the biggest one is the pressure and the anxiety and mental stress. So the pressure comes from the tournaments, the views, the eyeballs that you have on you as a person, on your social media, media in general, traditional media, playing in huge arenas. So every mistake you make is with a magnifying glass becomes bigger than it may have been, or you get tagged everywhere and you have to cope with all the messages you get, haters, support, of course, as well, which is very, very, very difficult from a pressure point of view. And the anxiety is something that results from that. So the anxiety to keep performing, to go back on that stage, knowing that you had a very, very bad tournament last time, or you don't feel very well. Maybe you didn't find your place in the team, because most of the esports games on top level are team games. So maybe you don't have a click with the management or with the team. It doesn't work too well. And it shows your performance. So I think pressure, depression, mental stress, anxiety, burnout, and social exclusion as a whole over those three areas are the ones we see a lot.
And
a lot.
And what kind of advice do you? I know you can't do this in one sentence, but what kind of advice are you giving people about coping with and dealing with and dealing with these issues?
Yeah, so actually, again, let's put it into 3 steps, but let's start at the top. At the top level, luckily, most of the teams with at least the bigger budgets, but let's say the top 1% of the teams, the FaZe, the Liquids, the Fanatics, they have their coaches for their squads, which very often include someone to talk to, even from the team itself, or a professional psychologist, for example. So those teams know what's up, and they know they have to care for their players' mental health, which in these times, luckily, is being taken care of for most of those big organizations. Now, when we talk about the other two, where competitive players-wise, very often the teams don't yet have the budgets to hire a psychologist, for example, for a long period of time to take care of the teams, and an amateur gamer does not at all. He's at home. But it's very easy to say, of course, but it's important to talk. People might not understand what you want to do, which is maybe professional gaming or becoming an influencer or a Twitch streamer, putting all those hours into gaming or game development or gaming content. Some parents or people or professionals might not want to know what you're doing. They don't like what you're doing. But I believe, and from my work as well, that education and sharing information, showing them what you're doing and taking them along the ride helps massively, because you're not by yourself. You have people to talk to at home or in your team. For example, if you're playing for a semi-pro team that doesn't have the budget for a psychologist, I don't believe that it is a weakness to go to your management and say, I have a problem. I actually think it's very strong if you can do that. And I believe last weekend we saw this, I don't know if it was kickboxing or boxing or UFC. It was all over the internet, this UFC, I believe UFC. This fighter, after he won, said, I prefer to have my mate crying on my shoulder than going to his funeral next week. And it's a very hectic quote from the interview, but that is also reality. So if depression gets to you too much, or if you don't talk about it and you try to suck it up, try to be stronger than you maybe are, things can go wrong, whatever the word wrong indicates for that person specifically. So I believe the best thing you can do from the very beginning, you want to try and build your career to become the pro, is to talk with people around you. What are you doing? How does it work? Talk about it during dinners, talk with your team. If you feel pressure, talk. I think that is very important. And it's a very easy tip to give. But when you're in that situation, it's very difficult. But hopefully people have someone they can trust and talk to. And if not, then hopefully a professional like a psychologist might be a good first step.
And this isn't exclusive to gaming. I mean, this is we talked about. This is now becoming more and more prevalent in sport, in daily life, right? So that message of talk to someone comes through creators as well. YouTubers, TikTokers, people who are making money out of making videos are now getting mental health issues as well for a lot of the same reasons. Musicians? Why wasn't my video watched, or why didn't people listen to my song? And kind of
the pressure of being liked, the pressure of the numbers, like data, and that's of course what social media does. I mean, social media is like, I guess quite some people that are watching have seen the Netflix series, The Social Dilemma, I believe the title was. I watched it last year, which I think provides a brilliant insight in how they work. But yeah, if you start a YouTube channel and you get 0 views, then you're like, oh, man, it gets to you. And then you see your mate doing very well, but you're lacking behind. Or if you're in a class, I use this example with parents very often, where girls tend to have their Instagram profiles and whatnot. The one girl is the popular one in the class and gets 200 likes, and the other one is the not so popular one and gets 5 likes. You can imagine what it does with someone's confidence, even though it's just an online platform. It's just likes, but that will reflect in real life, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it's not just it's another session. This is an entire event that we can talk about stuff like this, and sometimes, you know, all of a sudden it becomes cool to have issues because you get more likes. But that's definitely going off.
And the
script.
the fake generation, let's say, right? Like editing the pictures to an extent where you just do it for the likes, but it's not really you, or only showing the happiness but not the sadness. You know?
So I mean, back to this. You've mentioned, you know, having a team around you, and that doesn't necessarily just mean a team of players. How important is it to have a team, whether it's a manager, a coach, a psychologist? How important is that to you?
I mean, for me personally, incredibly important. But I think in general, regarding the team, very important as well. Because once you're part of a team or a squad, even as an amateur starting competitive player, you have your friends hopefully, or some team to play with, some other players to play with. And once you jump the ladder, you go to more professional organizations, teams, managers, and everything becomes part of it. And I think it's so important to, like, the word team is such a nice word. Like, you're not by yourself. You're with others trying to achieve the same goal, team. And they try to help you, and you try to help them by your results, hopefully. And hopefully that, of course, works out well. But having a team with a similar mindset, similar goal, very often are also the people you can talk to, because they understand. They are your teammates. They are with you. They work with you. They provide trust. They provide comfort. And having a team, and also in my career, has been vital to my success, and I think to the success of many.
And you touched on this before, the haters, and it's a fact of life now, right? And sometimes haters are just doing it to show off. Sometimes they're, you know, but how do you advise? And this is a question I ask a lot of managers as well. And there's always very interesting different answers. But how do you advise people to deal with the hate?
Yeah. So, shall I talk about what I do, or shall I talk in like general sense? So, personally, I think the hater people are very sad. You know, like hating on someone through very often an online environment. There must be something wrong. Like, why would you hate on someone? Now, as a player, I mean, I'm just that kind of person. It doesn't get to me, right? It's like, oh, you're hating, whatever. You know, like, I try to focus, and I think that's the lesson I'm going towards. Is I try to focus on what I can impact. I cannot impact a hater living on the other side of the world, being a keyboard warrior, #chatting for the Twitch viewers behind his PC, you know, trying to make stupid comments and hate and whatnot. So what I always used to focus on is my influence circle, as you like to call it. I think in the book Essentialism, it's a really good book. It's highlighted there as well. So focus on your circle of influence, and not the circle of what's outside your circle of influence. Because whatever you do to try and avoid haters, you might actually increase the problem by replying to them, or maybe it gets to you. So first of all, focus on your circle of influence. So that, you know, what do you have an impact on that will help you move forward. And if it does get to you, talk with people before you put anything online, because eventually, especially once you get to a certain stage of popularity, the moment you reply to someone that is a hater and you do something, you reply a little bit triggered, for example, media will pick it up, or other haters will pick it up, and they will then continue trying to put you off. And I think it's not healthy for yourself, and it fuels those haters. And I think the best thing to not fuel those haters is, first of all, don't give attention to them. Focus on your circle of influence, but let the results speak for themselves. So focus on yourself. And again, it's easier said than done, but that's how I did it from a personal experience. I focus on what I can influence. If I'm in an airplane and we have turbulence, I don't care. I can't influence the airplane. I can't influence the drop or the shaking. I'm just happy watching my video, and what happens with the airplane is up to the one flying it. And I think in life, that is an important lesson. Focus on what you can do as a person. And if you are doing that, I think you're one step ahead of everyone else, especially the haters.
Yeah, we get a lot of advice to just, like I say, don't fuel the haters, ignore the haters. But it's hard, right? And
Yes.
it's tough. But it's modern day bullying, and it was always like ignore the bullies as much as you can.
Yeah.
And now it's the same. So we've had a nice question here from Kiolo Belsonda, and again, as ever, I apologize if I've mispronounced your name, Kiolo. But is how important is nutrition in a player's health and wellness, in the same way that it is for athletes?
Yes.
What about gamers?
Yeah, very, very, very important. So just like with any traditional athlete, if you want to perform on the highest level, you ain't going to get away with eating pizzas, fries, and the fatty stuff. You need to get to a healthy, balanced diet. Again, professional teams quite often have chefs in their gaming houses. I used to have one in Team Ace's house when I played in Germany. So you have a chef or someone cooking for the team, and that by itself provides a nutritious meal that you need as a player. But again, for the lower levels, we see differences as well as the smaller the event, the more likely we see the pizzas coming, like LAN events. But I think nutrition is very important because that's what's fueling you and the energy to perform during a match. So what I did is I always had my bananas. But wherever I go in the world, I first go to the shopping mall or the supermarket, grocery store, and buy bananas. I always joked, that's my drugs. Like, my drugs are bananas. Why? Because bananas don't give you dirty hands. They're very easy to eat, and they give you a lot of energy, right? So half an hour before the match, I'd always eat my banana. And I think when you are performing on a high level, it's about the small details. So yes, everyone is very good at the high level, but it's going to be about the small things. How good are you physically? How healthy are you mentally? How good do you take care of yourself? Did you have a good night of sleep? Because if you didn't, you're going to lose that game because the other person might have a very good night of sleep. Better focus. If you eat a lot of fatty food, you get tired after dinner dip. You have less energy, less focus. So all these type of things in one creates a system that is very important for the player to perform on a high level, but also for an amateur or potentially future talent competitive player to get to reach their goals of becoming a professional player. If you are not a balanced, also nutritionally balanced player in your talent time climbing the ladder, I strongly believe you're just not going to make it, because there's going to be a moment you're going to encounter other players that are having a healthy balance physically, mentally, nutritionally, and they're going to outplay you because they're healthier, they can maintain their focus for a longer period of time, and whatnot. So I think nutrition is just one of those facets that is very important.
So for all the millions of people watching this session today, there's now going to be a global run on bananas now. Kern Schobbers, you have created a global issue around bananas.
I love them. Yeah, I still have them.
It was toilet rolls. It was toilet rolls 2 years ago, but now it's going to be bananas. So look, I mean, and thank you very much, Kiolo, for that question. We've had another question from Hexinho. It's quite a long question, but is there an issue here that perhaps prize pool money is too top heavy, and therefore if there was a better distribution through the tournaments, it wouldn't be so stressful? It's the same way, maybe tennis. You get paid to tennis.
I love the question. Thanks, Hexinho, for answering that question, because it's actually a topic that is being raised in the business side of the esports industry more often. Because the prize pool is not, of course, it doesn't have to be equally distributed, because the winner should have the biggest portion of the prize pool because they're the winner. You need to fight for something. But if the the differences are very, very big, it also leads to more pressure of, let me just use that pill, Ritalin, for example, or like it can become unhealthy for the ecosystem, like he is saying, as well as player welfare because of the pressure. Now, I personally do agree that if we can, as an industry, provide a prize pool that is not only top 3 based, or with Dota, I mean, it's, I don't know, top 15 or 10 or whatnot, that gets at least some bit of the prize pool. But if we can distribute it in a different way, where of course the number one should still by far get the biggest prize pot, and maybe even with Dota, the number one should get the same, but then the dividing the rest should be different, or different at all, so the top one also gets less, and it's more equally distributed. Because I do believe if the prize pools are better distributed, it does avoid a little bit of that stress and pressure to either live unhealthy, play welfare wise, or use any form of drugs to try and win the event. And actually, a great example is that I think next week or in 2 weeks, there's a big Trackmania event in Melloy. It's in Norway, north of Norway. And the prize pool that's being distributed there, I believe, is, I mean, it's not Dota, right? So it's like 25K, something like that, 25K. But even the people just attending get paid. So there's, I believe, 16 players that go. And even if you're 16th, you still have earnings. So even just by attending, just by qualifying for the event, you already get paid, which is good. And then, of course, the higher you get, the bigger the prize pool, with the top 3 getting the most. But it's very well distributed. Now, it's not a game where the pressure is as high as Dota, because it's not millions. But I do agree with Hexino that I think that if you can distribute it better, it will lessen the stress on some of these players and teams to perform.
Sure. And thank you again for the question. So we've talked about, I'm not going to use the word, it's not negative. We talked about the rougher side of gaming and the issues that are coming through with sports people as well. But what are the positives that are coming from gaming?
Yeah, so I believe there's many positives for gaming. And while I'm answering your question, I read the end part of the question of Hexino that says, what can tournament organizers do more to promote this? And I just in one sentence want to say is, if they have a more equally distributed prize pool, I think it also increases their viewership and popularity, because their tier 2, 3 teams and competitions get paid more, so there's more motivation to play the game. You get money quicker, more players, more viewers, more eyeballs, more prize money, more sponsors. So I think it's very good for tournament organizers as well. But get to the question of, I think like gaming can definitely have positive impacts. Of course, we spoke about a lot of maybe potentially negative impact of gaming and playing games, but there's of course a whole list of positivity also for like mentally and socially by playing games. And I believe especially we've seen that during COVID. People were not able to get out of their house, or very limited amount of time getting out of their house, so socializing was very difficult, but they managed to socialize through games with their real life friends or either online friends. And I believe having that conversation in a gaming environment is very good. So it might actually lessen, like in the Netherlands, we had record numbers of kids with depression. But I do believe that at least gaming managed to reduce the number of what it could have been, because they were still able to chat with each other, talk with each other, and whatnot. And then besides the social impact of playing games, which is a very positive one, it's the personal development with the language, with the skill set, with the leadership skills or strategy skills, or all those skills you learn by playing a certain game in a team environment or a solo environment are skills that you develop, and they won't go away. You will take them in your work-life balance in the future. So I love examples. I used to be a Trackmania player where hand-eye coordination and very fast decision-making is super important in the game, where I eventually became a medical student, and in the hospital, I was tested against the medical professionals on accuracy, reaction time, because they wanted to know, okay, we have this gamer that's a medical student. How does he perform versus our standard group of doctors and professionals? And I by far outperformed them on reaction time and accuracy just because I've played that game, at least on a professional level. So I might not be the standard gamer, but at least the results were pretty interesting, if you ask me, because I wasn't a doctor yet, but my accuracy and reaction time was better. So I do strongly believe that the skills you build playing games, if you're an amateur, competitive, semi-pro, pro, doesn't matter, by playing games, you develop certain skills that will help you throughout life. Wherever you are, wherever your passion lies, whatever your job is going to be, I strongly believe it will help you. And I think the biggest and easiest one to mention is just the language by itself. Really, if you learn English, which is the standard language in this industry, business-wise, you can do business with the whole world because everyone between the quote unquote speaks English. So but then of course, like the other skills that I mentioned, personal development skills, massively beneficial.
How do we make gaming or mental health and wellness and well-being? How do we make it a priority for the industry? And I know that's something that really the Global Esports Federation is behind, but what measures do you think need to be taken?
I believe that teams are already doing a good job with their psychologists, at least the pros, for example. Then we have indeed like the Global Esports Federation, we're paying attention to it. Now, I would like to see an educational type of platform or some platform where you can anonymously talk with someone for help. So if I am a player, I don't necessarily want to talk with like the standard psychologist at home because he doesn't know anything about my industry. He doesn't know anything about the gaming and esports industry. So it will be quite difficult to connect with that psychologist. Of course, he can connect with me with the problem I have, but not the industry where I'm in, which I have to explain because that's where the problems come from. So what I actually would really like to see, if that maybe game developers or federations or whatnot can cooperate and work together to create a platform where players from all levels can contact, call, email, chat with people that are professionals, psychologists or other healthcare type of professionals, but they understand the industry. I think that would be very beneficial because we can't force someone to talk with us. We can't force someone that is potentially experiencing problems to talk with us. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they do. We don't know what problems. It needs to be, we need to make we say the drempel in the Netherlands. We have to make the barrier so low for people to get in touch when they have problems that we need to somehow provide them with the tools to get to us. And so the barrier of entry should be very low. And I believe we can do that by being online because those people gamers are used to being online. But also make sure you have people that know the industry, that are professionals in their respective rights, and that can help those players. I don't think we can make it much lower than that, besides teams having their own psychologists and being with the players. You can't do that with amateur or people that are at home. You can't just send a psychologist to their door. That doesn't work. So I think the barrier of entry as low as possible, have some sort of online platform that maybe even gets funded by the industry themselves. I mean, how beautiful would that be?
It's a very, very nice idea. Writing that one down on a different piece of paper. Two more questions because we're running out of time, and because this is the internet, it literally shuts off. We don't have a nice person that we can wave at, and they let us keep going. Broader subject, and this is you as a gamer and someone involved in the gaming industry, not really to do with the subject at hand, but a lot of challenges we're seeing, certainly in this part of the world, in Asia, is that the gaming industry has very little credibility as a career with the older generation. So kid comes home and says to mum and dad, I want to get into gaming. They're whisked out the back door and into back into being an accountant or a doctor or whatever. Could you see what advice could you give, or how could in your view, how could the industry help increase the credibility of gaming as a career?
Yeah, so again, I believe it's very strongly related to education, especially for youth and parents, because many parents, once their kid starts playing games, it's the kid wants to be a professional gamer or an influencer or a streamer. But I think there is a misunderstanding of what you can actually do in this industry, because there are so many positions. Like basically all the studies and you can do can be related to gaming. So marketing in the gaming and esports industry, law, being a doctor or psychologist, a physiotherapist and whatnot, like whatever the job you do, we need it in the industry as well. And I think it's important to also tell kids at schools or education-wise, prevention-wise, to tell them, hey, you love playing games, that's great, because we need you in our industry. And maybe you're not going to reach that like contract as a professional player, but if you have a passion for this industry, you can be the next marketing guy working for XYZ company or esports team, and you can work with the players or for the players or for the industry. So I think education is very important. And from the Global Esports Federation perspective, we are going to launch an academy later. I don't know exactly if it's at the end of this year or maybe next year, but it will consist with, like, there will be different modules and whatnot. I don't know exactly if this will strictly be part of it, but it is definitely something from the Athletes, Players and Community Commission we do talk about, because one of the people in our commission is also working with after player life. Like if a player is finished with his or her career, then how can they remain involved in the industry in another position? So it's the same question, it's just another level. So I believe for amateurs as well as professionals, the question rises, what can I do in this industry? And there's so much more to do, but it all starts with informing and educating. So like getting it out there as well. So there's not too many parties that talk about this. And it, of course, like the bigger the party, the more effect it would have. Local parties like myself, yeah, I do speak at schools in the Netherlands and I talk about it. But hey, that's a classroom of 20 people. I might impact the lives of 20 people when they ever make a choice. But if you are a big developer and you have millions of people following your social media, it might actually be very interesting to talk about jobs and other things in the industry. And especially if you are a company and looking for positions or people, you can post it on your social media so people also see that it's a business being run. It's not just gaming or playing games, which I think is a misunderstanding sometimes for the kids starting playing games.
Brilliant. And look, final question before the internet cuts us off. Aside to everything we've talked about today, for Koen Schobbers, what is really exciting for you right now? In a minute, you've got 1 minute.
In 1 minute, I have two things. One thing is speaking globally more consistently at the moment at global events. The world is open. The events are kickstarting again. I love it. So that is happening, and I love speaking on a global scale. Secondly is Parents of Play 2.0 is in the works, and that's going to be launched, I think, Q1 next year. So we're working hard with that as well. We learned lessons and we're implementing it. And then actually a 3 is the Global Esports Federation. We have the Commonwealth Esports Championships coming up next weekend, where I will be attending. So if anyone is watching, living across or somewhere close to Birmingham, make sure to visit, pay us a visit. We'd love to have you there. And I look forward to what's yet to come.
Fantastic. Well, listen, it's been brilliant talking. I mean, we are out of time. I could keep going on this subject and talking to you forever. Look, we talked about the positive side of gaming. It develops a number of very positive skills. And you talk about how it helped you in your medical career. But then we did spend a lot of time talking about, gamers are athletes and athletes do face a lot of mental health issues. But you talked about taking a healthy diet. You talked about don't take drugs. You talked about you're not alone. Ask for help. You talked about having a team. Have a team around and talk to them. Ignore the hate. Your quote here: focus on the circle of influence and don't fuel the haters. Have a healthy, balanced diet. We talked about better prize distribution, which is probably another subject in and of itself. You talked about the credibility of gaming comes from having careers around gaming. It doesn't have to be actually as a gamer, which I thought was a brilliant insight. I've never heard someone come up with that insight before. But then you said, I think really, I don't know which one to finish on here, but I'm going to finish with a serious one. So you did say go out and buy bananas. So everyone's now going out to buy bananas. But look, I think the most important thing I got from this is that for anyone out there, you're not alone. Talk to people, and to quote British Telecom's old slogan, it's good to talk. And so, Kern, I want to say thank you so much for joining the final module of the Gaming Matters Academy, and good luck with everything. Enjoy yourself in Birmingham next week. I would also like to say a few thank yous as well. Thank you to the literally hundreds of thousands of people who have tuned in to watch our sessions on Twitch, on here, and all over the internet. We are so grateful. We've had over 50 speakers over 8 modules. Our partners, Twitch, the Global Esports Federation, Singtel. Amazing. Thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have done all this, and I wouldn't be talking to you all today. And finally, a really special word here. I want to say thank you to the Branded team for putting this all together. We talk about learning matters. We've been talking about leveling up. Talk about leveling up. These guys weren't doing this 2 years ago, and they have all upskilled themselves to be able to produce these amazing online events. So I'm going to call out Nipuna, Roxy, Sheila, Gina, and the whole Branded team for making this matter to me and to hundreds of thousands of people. So well done to all of you. We will see you all, I hope, at All That Matters in September in Singapore, 26th to 28th at the Hilton. Get online, check it out. Amazing program. We are bringing the great reconnect. So we'll see you all there. But thank you again for joining the Gaming Matters Academy.